I'm Kim Frazier, and this is Front Porch Forums. And today I'm with my friend, Pastor John Gargis.
Hello, it's good to see you.
Pastor John, it's so good to see you.
Welcome to my living room.
I love your living room. Your porch is the nicest porch I've ever seen.
Is it? Good,
It
good,
is.
good.
I love it so much. So
Yeah.
you and I actually met. It's been almost 3 years ago, if you can believe that.
No,
Yes.
gosh.
It's been 3 years ago, before pandemic.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
But you reached out to me and you just asked me for coffee because you wanted to talk about the needs of the community, how to strengthen the community, how to grow the community, how to reach people, just all the things that are just, that's my jam.
Yeah.
You know, that's my jam. And so a lot has happened since that first cup of
Gosh.
coffee. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
We'll get into that. But what stood out to me the most from our first cup of coffee is your story.
Yeah.
You have an incredible story. And, you know, we've talked about how you do have an opportunity with your church and with ministry to reach people through that story.
Yes.
But I want these folks to hear it. Would you share it with
Yeah,
us?
I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I did not grow up in the church.
Yeah.
My dad called himself an atheist. I think he was more of a humanist.
Yeah.
You know, he was too smart. And he struggled with alcohol. And my dad passed away when I was 17. And he would have seizures when he tried to stop drinking. So 17, 16, 15, 14 weren't so great.
Yeah.
And so, they're, 17 years old, fathers, passed away. And I moved out of my house when I was 18 years old. I was a senior in high school. I got my own apartment. Children of alcoholics overfunction. You know?
Okay.
So didn't grow up in the church. I remember we lived in this apartment complex my entire life. And I remember a church knocking on the door and inviting us to join them. They had a bus ministry. And I look back on it now and I realized that we were the mission field, They made our apartment complex the mission field.
Yeah.
But the oddest part of that is I have no memory of my parents being involved in it at all. It was like I answered the door, I got on the bus, and I went for a few times. Went to a VBS. My aunt, a friend of my aunt invited me. And then my grandmother went to church. And my only memory of her church is the Wednesday night dinner and a thing of green beans.
Oh, yeah. And a casserole.
But I know now those were seeds, so that's part of my story, planting seeds.
Yeah.
I'm obviously a fan of VBS, but all the things I learned to survive and the realities of my childhood, I took those things into my adult life, and they don't play so well as an adult. So I overfunctioned. I had a lot of success in business
Yeah, because you were in a totally different field.
Yeah, I was in technology.
Ministry came later in life for you.
Yes, I was a computer programmer at 19. I taught myself to program mainframe computers, and so I was kind of a child prodigy until all my friends started coming home from college, and I didn't have that piece of paper, so that was kind of a profile, And I spent most of my career in a very degreed space without a degree, and but all the while I struggled. In my high school, we drank beer and smoked pot.
Yeah.
And so I graduated with honors, and I was always high functioning in business until I wasn't.
Okay.
And and that happens quickly. I had a staffing company. It was hugely successful. I gave it to my partner in a fog because I was going to go start another business, and I did. But that's when things, sitting in an office by myself with no other employees, is when things hit the bottom. And the next day, a friend called me and asked me to help him with a ministry called Celebrate Recovery.
Yes.
And so that's a part of my journey. Is that the next day, I told him, I said, "You won't believe what happened to me last night." And that was 19 years ago, September 11th. So just last weekend was 19 years of sobriety. So I was active in that ministry, and then ultimately went into ministry myself. But it gives me a different lens.
Yeah.
Second career pastor, in recovery, in recovery ministry.
It makes you very relatable.
Yeah, and you see people burned by the church.
Yes.
You see people that have burned the church.
Yeah, yeah.
You see both sides, and so it gives you a unique perspective. The biggest is in recovery ministry, it's literally life and death. You hear the news. I've done the funerals. A couple years ago, that be Sunday morning, I embraced that same urgency on Sunday morning as I do what was Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So I've got a heightened sense of urgency for people that were lost like me, and then somebody showed them a pathway to wholeness, and now I get up every day trying to show other people that pathway to wholeness.
You've really found your purpose.
Yeah, I did.
In your pain.
I did. It just took too long, but I did.
Yeah. Well, sometimes the smartest people are late learners.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
I'm a late learner.
But you've been here in this area in Knox County for 30 years?
30 years from Atlanta.
So why Knoxville? I mean, what made it special to you to say, this is my forever home?
Well, Knoxville picked us.
Okay.
I was on the road for tech companies, and my wife managed a call center for Days Inn out of Atlanta, and they asked her to start a call center here. So when we moved here, I was traveling, and we had never slept in Knoxville when we moved here. We'd never spent the night here.
Never been here before.
And quickly it became home. It would be difficult to move back to Atlanta. We moved to Florida 1 year, and we missed the hills, the trees, and Southerners. And so
it didn't last long.
When we moved to Knoxville, it was an answered prayer.
And that's very much my story too.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been here almost 25 years now, but I had never really looked into Knoxville, and it was all because I fell in love with the UT Vol, and he had big orange roots, and fast forward 25 years, this is home.
You couldn't pry us out of here.
No.
And it's just, home is a big word.
It is a big word, and it means so many different things to so many different people.
It does.
So it's like a two-part question. What's important to you as wearing two hats? One, a citizen, being a husband, a father, a member of the community.
Yes.
And then the other as a pastor. What is most important to you?
Outside of the pathway to wholeness, I would say, and this is a citywide view. It's not just I find myself in West Knoxville now, but it's that difference in. I heard a stat that in our area here, there's a house built every 32 hours. And we see it. And as soon as I say that, it kind of sounds like a first world problem, but it's important. It goes back to home.
Right.
Instead of just having a place to live,
yes.
we need to have a life.
Yeah, experience
life.
Places to gather and to be together.
Yes. And in life itself, I've noticed that if you don't put a margin in your calendar for life, it won't happen. If you don't schedule time, we call it margin, to live, it's not going to happen. And I feel that same way about our planning in our communities. If we don't plan a little margin in our communities for life, it's not going to happen. And we're going to all, have our clickers for our garage doors, and we won't even know our neighbors. And so I think we need that margin, we need that space. And that's part of our focus of this new church is to kind of provide some of that space for this community. But I do things in Lonsdale. I do, other parts of the city.
And you've been in Fountain City.
Fountain City, the same thing.
You've been all over the county. You've kind of you've witnessed and experienced people doing life in all areas of the county.
Yes, and in North Knoxville, I had a church in North Knoxville, and they built these homes in the 50s. They all had porches. They all had sidewalks. You can look, and it was built for community. And we've lost that.
Yeah, we have. And you and I have talked about how, the porch is where you welcome new friends and you greet old ones.
Yes.
And we've kind of lost that a little bit.
Yes.
And the pandemic sure didn't help.
No, gosh.
And this is what's fascinating to me. So here you are. You have a vision for a church, for a community. You're journeying alongside, I think, the citizens with the needs and visions, and you're trying to incorporate all of that into this great gathering place. And then a pandemic hits.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But still,
Yes.
you were creative and hopeful.
Yes.
And you told me it gave you purpose every morning to get up. The challenges gave you purpose.
Yes. Yes.
And you were able to work through a pandemic, break ground on a church ahead of schedule.
Yes. Well, you know,
How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, I know where I end and he begins, and so there's a lot of him in this, the big H hymn, in this story, because it only further illustrates, you know, a God-sized dream that we are doing here, and so I got this appointment in July of 2019, and I knew there was a presidential election coming, and it was polarized. We've got some stuff going on within our church that's equally polarizing. We were supposed to have a general conference, international general conference, that would have spawned this same spirit, very similar to what's going on in our politics, is within our church. I knew that was coming, and I was planning it. I could see it in the future. It was actually on the other side of our launch date, but I had no idea that this thing was going to hit. And so we were planning. I had a coach. I had a church plant coach, and my office walls had those white stickies all the way around with the plan, and it started here and it went around, and there was the launch date, and nowhere on there had a pandemic.
No.
And so, you know, we shut down. We need to remember the details of this thing. We're going to forget it. We shut down. We weren't even supposed to leave the house.
Yeah.
But I can't do that. I can't stay in the house. So I would sneak out and drive over here to this property and look at all the other people that were sneaking out. And I would sit on that stump down there. And just pray. And for some reason, I actually confirmed my calling, because I was like void of that connection. And something about sitting here in the middle of this community with somewhat of a view, it made me feel connected.
Yeah, in stillness and in quiet.
Yeah, and just to be.
And that's when you felt most connected to your Maker.
Yes, and it was hard though. And there was a season I felt like I was losing my voice. Because you get a rhythm. Yeah. And Easter's coming, and I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know. And so I was sitting there, similar to this setting, and I got a tripod and my phone, and I hit the play button for Easter.
Yeah.
And I started this crazy thing called A Message from the Stump. And a lot of our members, a lot of our leaders came from that message from the stump.
Yeah.
And we cut a trail here, a quarter-mile trail that we're sitting in, and we hung bracelets so people could walk the trail.
Yep.
And we encouraging message on the bracelets.
I've walked this trail.
Yeah, and it was just you mentioned the word creative. You know, we've all had to get. That's the positive.
Yeah.
We've all had to get creative because of the realities of this pandemic.
And innovative and adaptable.
Yes.
You know, I was talking with someone who was in business consulting, and they were trying to work with new graduates, and they were telling me that one thing they realized about new grads in the last probably 5 to 10 years is the lack of adaptability.
Yes.
Because they're so dependent on devices and technology and accessibility.
Yes.
And what this has taught even our students, every age, not only be creative, but you have to be able to adapt.
Adapt, yes.
And boy, didn't we learn how to do that.
Man, I'm telling you, we weren't even online because we launched.
No.
And I remember Christmas, we were gonna go live, and it didn't work. And you know, Christmas night, my wife was in Georgia with her father, and Christmas night I was trying to edit a video.
Yeah, but listen, you know, I remember the first message from the stump, and it was one of those things where I'm scrolling through Facebook, and I see you sitting, an image of you just sitting on this stump, and I thought, what is Pastor Gargis up to? And just curiosity, click open, and then it was like a gift, really, because we all felt isolated and disconnected, and you gave us all a place. Yeah. You gave us a place right here in our community when we couldn't leave the house. Yeah. From that stump.
Yeah. Well, and I talked about our realities, And you know what happened during that stump with pandemic, politics, racial unrest?
Yeah.
I talked about all those things from that stump. We went to Florida on vacation, and we went through Atlanta, which is where I'm from.
Yeah.
And it was the night the racial unrest broke out in my hometown. We got to the beach, and I felt like everything I would say would be turned against me. Do I have a voice? Do I have the right to say anything as a white man? And I thought about it all week. And you know what I talked about on Friday? I talked about fear.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was feeling.
Me too.
You know? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's Our newsletter is called The Message from the Stump.
Oh, that's perfect. And, you know, going back to fear, I love something that another friend of mine said today was that I have a lot of righteous fear.
Yeah.
And it comes from a place of wanting to help and wanting to solve problems and issues. And I really did, in that season of life, feel a lot of just righteous fear of, I don't know what to say, and I don't know what to do.
Right.
And all we can do sometimes is exactly what you did.
Yeah.
Is sit and be with each other and say, I know how you feel. I'm
Yes.
here too.
Yes.
And let's just be here together.
Yes.
And that's so important.
It is. It is.
And you being a part of a growing community, because where your church is going to be, it's the fastest growing in all of Knox County.
Yes.
You know, as a church, as a servant leader, what do you envision this community look like in 5 years, 10 years?
Yes. Well,
What does that look like?
Two thoughts. One is, and this is more Knoxville than just this area,
Yeah.
but in Atlanta, I never saw my friends again that I graduated high school with. And so I moved to Knoxville, and I started to notice that when I go to dinner, I'd see people I knew, and I'm like, what's going on here? You know, so we go from 6 degrees of separation to 2 degrees of separation here, and I
Yes,
love
that is so true.
I love that. I love that.
I do too.
That's one of my favorite things.
And my husband gets on to me. You can't go anywhere
Yeah.
without seeing someone that you know. It takes 30 minutes to get out the door. And I said, yes, and I love it.
Love it. You know, because you go in different circles and they start to connect.
Yes.
You know, all the circles. And then more specifically in this fast growing area, you know, we have people in our church that are 6 generations
Yes.
in this area. And that was actually a surprise to me. That wasn't on my radar because all I saw was plop, 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 plop houses.
Right. New
popping up.
construction.
Yeah. And that was my
Newcomers,
focus.
yeah.
And, you know, and in some ways, the culture is not buying what we're selling in a lot of ways. And so I was mindful of that. But one thing I noticed, and my kids grew up in this area. They went to the high school here. And we actually had a young man live with us last year that finished at the high school.
Right.
That's now in the Navy. And so I watched him for a recent year. And one of the things that I dialed into was that we lack identity in this area. We're growing so fast. We're not planned so great. So there's not those parks. You know, I tell people I had you at Park.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just like we kind of lack that identity. So my hope is 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that we can be, it'll happen because people are starving for it.
Yes.
And I just hope that we can be a part of that.
Right.
You know, we're going to build a community center. We're not building a church.
Yes.
We're building a community center. We'll have church there. But we just want it to be a part of this community. We're keeping green space. We're going to build some park stuff. The trail. We want to be a part of that new identity that's forming so quickly.
And you had said, you know, those doors will always be open.
They will. Yeah.
They'll always be open.
They will. Yeah.
And I think that gives such comfort and peace, especially to, you know, citizens, just to know no matter what I'm feeling, there's a place for me.
There's a place, yeah. Come hang out. You know?
And it really is about that.
A safe place.
A safe place.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because not all churches qualify for that,
Right.
you know.
But you
sadly.
know, you have the opportunity and the giftings to share a lot of light and hope every week. I mean, that's your job. What a great job.
Go figure, yeah.
But how do you keep that light going in you? Like, how do you pour into your spirit?
Yes. So, you know, part of that's my recovery program, and a big part of that's living one day at a time.
Yeah.
But that's in vogue right
Yeah.
now. You know, I play that card to everybody,
Yeah.
not just recovery people. And and I didn't know. I thought that was a bumper sticker until I read scripture one day, and it was like, wow, that's scripture. But in that same place, he says, I'll take care of tomorrow too, which means he's got today.
Today.
Yeah. So that's a big part of it. And then I feed myself light. I call it my secret sauce. And so I don't schedule myself usually. A good day is 10 o'clock.
Okay.
Because I have my iPad by my bed, and I literally get up. My wife spoils me with a cup of coffee, and I do my work in the mornings. And I don't write sermons any other time of the day. I do it all in the mornings, and that's when it. And so I leave the house, and I'm more armed to survive.
Right.
So it's a huge part of my program is to feed myself light, so that I can survive in this crazy world.
How important is it to you? Because I know we talk about mental health is a really big issue in Knox County, and the pandemic sure didn't help. But you speak to really carving out some time for yourself.
Yes.
How would you encourage other people to do that? And how important do you think that is as far as your mental and your spiritual health?
Yes. Well, and it sounds silly, but you've got to do the work. It doesn't just happen.
Right.
I called it a pathway to peace.
Yeah.
Or pathway to wholeness.
Yeah.
It doesn't just happen. You have to do the work. And so that's number one. And then number two, that's where my slogan, you must be present to win.
Yeah.
Is you've got to show up.
That.
You've got to show up, and you've got to do the work.
And you can't leave early.
You can't leave early. You can't punch out early.
No.
And I've seen people sit in the rooms where we're doing this study, and they're just auditing it. You remember in school when you could audit a class?
Right.
You can't audit it.
Right.
You got to do it. And I can't do it for you.
Yeah.
And you can't do it for me. And so that's number one is, and sadly, you can get stuck there.
You can, easily.
You can get addicted.
Well, you become comfortable.
Yeah, and it's attention getting and,
Right. And
so,
I tell people, choose discomfort over resentment.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
Press in.
Yes.
My dad always said, if you see something that needs attention, step up, don't stand back.
Yes. Make a difference.
Try.
Make a little difference today. Yeah.
And that's all. You also talk about too, which I have experienced this, is how harmoniously places of worship
It's crazy.
in our area,
It's crazy.
that they support each other
Yeah.
and encourage each other, and it's really about the big picture.
Yes. Fellowship started it.
Yep.
Fellowship down the road. They helped Emmanuel Church. They helped
Yes.
Citizens Church. And then I roll into town, and Emmanuel helped us. I was on the setup team of Emmanuel Church, so I could get to
Yeah.
know the high school.
Yeah.
And so we became friends, and we meet. We're planning a trunk or treat
Yeah.
right now. Last year you invited my church to do it. This year
Yes.
we're all getting together, and we're going to do it.
And it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, we're going to do it
fun.
together. And I keep telling them, I'm that voice. I'm like, folks, this doesn't happen. This
Right.
playing nice together. We need to feature that. So it's going to be, trunk or treat brought to you by Church Community Group, and that's the way we're going to get the message out. But talk about beginning to form an identity. That's
it.
a huge piece
Right.
of that we're not competitive. I'm doing some middle school stuff, and it's my church and Emmanuel's church.
Yeah.
And we're not.
Yeah.
It's just so. Feels good.
It does feel good.
Versus the angst
Yeah.
of competing.
Well, it's about people and places and community.
Yes.
It's not about
yes.
a position.
No.
Or
I'm
your
bigger than you, or I'm
size,
better than you, or
Right.
And we had the groundbreaking right here,
Yeah.
and
I was
you were
here.
there, and they were all there.
I know.
They were all there. And,
in community together.
Yes. And the county mayor came, and it was so funny because going back to the politics, some people are like, he's coming? And I'm like, yeah, we don't play in that sandbox.
That's right.
They didn't know I was talking to them.
Yeah.
But, I spoke, and our bishop spoke, and our children's director
Yes.
spoke, and our district superintendent spoke, and then he spoke, and he was the first one to read scripture.
That's right. Isn't that amazing? It's so amazing.
So I was like, there you go. That's it.
It
you
is.
know?
And
it.
that's really been, as I've gotten to know you, that has been your approach, is
Yeah.
that we're all in this together.
Yeah, we're not doing that stuff.
And the bottom line is we're in community,
Yeah.
and we're gonna muck through the good, and we're gonna
Yeah.
muck through the bad,
Yes.
and we're gonna come out of it together.
Yeah. And we have one mission. And you know, some people call it agendas or stances. Or
right.
We have one
Right.
mission, and it's not those others. You know, we have one mission, and that's just to connect people that
And
are
serve
disconnected.
in
So,
some way.
Yeah.
And that's what I love that you're bringing too. You're bringing even more opportunity to the people who live, work, worship, and play in this community.
Yeah.
More opportunities to serve and to be together. And so I want to thank you for that.
Yeah.
And thank you
It's a
for
blessing for me.
sharing your giftings, because I truly feel like there is a place for everyone, and you're giving more people a place. So
Yeah,
thank
you know,
you
yeah,
so much.
Thank you for all you do, and your little engine that could in here.
I am kind of the little engine that could,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, thank
I am.
you.
But
Thank you. Yes.
And thank you for coming and joining us here on this beautiful porch. We'll see you next time.